The first thing you notice isn't him. It's his hand, closed around her wrist. Barely. No force behind it. Just fingers. And yet something about the sight of it feels wrong in a way that's hard to name. Like a sentence ending too early, or a door that shouldn't be open. She looks down at his hand, then at him. Neither speaks. He lets go. But it's already too late for that. The caverns glow blue-green beneath them. Ancient water, still as glass. Copper hair catching light that has no business being this beautiful underground. King Caelan Thornwyck is still on one knee. Let that land for a second. The Alpha King of Lyra. A man who has faced assassins without flinching. Who has reshaped bloodlines with a sentence. Who receives foreign rulers and delivers irreversible judgments. All while standing. He is kneeling. Waiting. And she is stepping backward. One step. His jaw tightens. Another. The muscles across his shoulders pull like rope under tension. A third. She stops only when the edge of the glowing pool presses cold against her boots. And the cavern, somehow, feels enormous now, like the distance between them is being measured by something other than feet. Rowan. Voice steady, no accusation in it, just fact. You keep following me. That's steadiness. That's the part that gets him. Not anger. Not fear. Just tired. The way someone sounds when they've stopped expecting things to change. Water drips from somewhere in the dark. A cold current moves through the chamber. Caelan rises slowly. It restores the height difference between them. It changes nothing else. Caelan, I needed to see you. The words come out too fast. Like he's said them before. Like he's been rehearsing them without realizing it. Rowan lowers her eyes for just a moment, and it's not shyness, it's not uncertainty, it's the specific exhaustion of someone who already knows where this goes. Rowan. Quietly, you had meetings today. He says nothing. Rowan. Council hearings yesterday. Silence. Rowan. Patrol reports before that. The cavern shrinks. She knows. Far more than someone from outside Stonehaven. Keep should know. Far more than is comfortable. A flicker passes across her face, something too quick to name, and then she glances toward the tunnel entrance. Not toward escape. Toward expectation. Toward whatever weight is already waiting for him outside these walls. He notices that. He notices everything now. Every pause. Every breath. Every direction her eyes move. He knows this about himself, and he doesn't stop. He steps closer. Rowan doesn't move. The water behind her throws trembling light across ancient stone. For a long moment, neither of them does anything at all. The silence holds something in it. A question that hasn't been asked yet. A choice that neither of them is ready to make. Then, far above, a deep sound rolls through the mountain. Thunder, maybe, or something giving way. It fades. Caelan barely hears it. Rowan, barely above a whisper. You shouldn't have come here. Not sharp. Not unkind. Just certain. Like she's already watched this play out and is only now describing what she saw. He watches her face for hesitation. There isn't any. Caelan, I would come anywhere you asked. He didn't mean to say it out loud. She closes her eyes. Only for a heartbeat. When they open again, the exhaustion is gone, and something harder has replaced it. Not anger. Not even disappointment. Recognition. Like she's just watched a door close. Not in front of her. Behind him. The cavern settles into cold silence. Water laps against stone somewhere below. A wolf calls once in the darkness beyond the tunnel. One long sound, and then nothing. Rowan's gaze drifts past him. Toward the passage. towards Stonehaven. Rowan, you shouldn't be here.
Different this time.
Not a warning. The last moment before something arrives. And Caelan, for the first time, wonders which will reach him first. The people searching for their king, or whatever Rowan already sees coming. Boots strike rock from somewhere in the tunnel.
Fast.
Closing. Rowan's shoulders tighten without moving. Caelan turns. A young scout emerges from the dark, lantern raised, breath uneven. The moment he sees the Alpha King, he nearly loses his footing. Scout. Barely a sound, my king. Sweat shines across his forehead. Cold room. It doesn't matter. Caelan doesn't ask. The answer is already written in the man's face. Scout. Swallowing. They've been searching since dawn. Rowan closes her eyes. Just briefly. Then she steps away. One small movement. It lands like a blade. The chamber smells of wet wool and impatience. Caelan enters to complete silence, and in that silence, everyone calculates. Most rise. Some don't. That's the part that matters. Clan leaders do not remain seated when the Alpha King enters. Not unless they're sending a message and no longer care who receives it. The heavy doors close. The echo does the talking. Maps cover the long oak table. Trade routes, border reports, patrol markings. Problems that have been waiting the way problems do, quietly, then all at once. Caelan takes his seat at the head of the table. A gray-haired counselor slides a parchment toward him. 3 broken wax seals at the bottom. Unanswered correspondence. Days old. His fingers pause at the edge of the paper. Across the chamber, 2 clan representatives exchange a glance. Not hidden, not subtle, visible, deliberate. One folds his arms. Another leans back. The room has started testing how far it can go. The meeting drags. Voices rise, fall, negotiate. Decisions wait.
Questions hang.
Caelan answers when he must, but every few minutes his gaze drifts to the tall windows overlooking the North Ridge.
Toward the mountains.
Toward Elderglen. A counselor clears his throat. Once. Then again. Caelan surfaces to find an entire question suspended midair, waiting for him. Every eye in the room has already seen what they needed to see. He answers. Too late. The damage is already done. By sunset, the whispers are faster than official announcements. Servants first, then merchants, then the guards along the inner wall. By nightfall, it's candlelit dinner conversation in noble households. The Alpha King is distracted. The Alpha King is absent. The Alpha King is changing. Old stone absorbs rumors the way it absorbs rain.
Slowly.
Then all at once. Morning brings visitors. 3 noble families before breakfast.
Gifts.
Requests for private audiences. Daughters dressed in ceremonial colors. The choosing ceremony is approaching, and no one intends to be forgotten. Caelan listens through half the first meeting. A quarter of the second. The 3rd chair sits empty before the appointed hour. By the time anyone realizes he's gone, he's already beyond the eastern gate. Horse driving hard along the forest road, branches whipping past, cold air cutting across his face. The distance between Stonehaven and Ashmere Hollow disappearing beneath hooves. Behind him, responsibilities stack higher. Ahead, Rowan is still the only destination that feels real. He knows this is a problem. He goes anyway. Twilight settles over the valley. Smoke from cottage chimneys. Children chasing each other through narrow lanes. Life moving at the pace of people who don't carry kingdoms. Caelan dismounts beside a weathered fence. The village barely notices a king among them. He finds Rowan near the healer's cottage. She's carrying a bucket of water. Nothing dramatic about it. No ceremony, no performance. Just a person doing a thing.
She turns,
Sees him.
stops.
The space between them fills immediately, not with warmth, but with everything he's abandoned to be here. Every meeting missed. Every obligation left waiting. Every person back in Stonehaven, wondering where their king went. A dog barks somewhere down the lane. A door closes. The village keeps breathing around them like neither of them exists. Then Rowan looks past him.
South. Toward consequences.
Rowan. No surprise in it, just quiet certainty. You left again. He doesn't answer, because there's nothing to say that would be true and also good. The water rocks gently against the rim of the bucket. Her grip never falters. His does, because he finally sees what she's actually looking at. Not a king, not someone pursuing her. A man who keeps abandoning things to stand in front of her. That realization follows him all the way back to Stonehaven. He arrives after midnight. The keep is awake. Torches along every wall. Messengers crowding the lower halls. Council members waiting outside the chamber doors. No one looks relieved. A herald stands near the entrance holding a sealed announcement tube. Silver seal. High assembly mark. The room goes still as Caelan takes it. The wax cracks under his thumb. His eyes move across the parchment. Once. Then again. 12 days remain until the choosing ceremony. The inner chamber doors stay half open, as if even the stone refuses to fully commit to what's happening inside. A Blackridge envoy hasn't come in person. That choice alone is a calculated insult. The message arrives through intermediaries, each layer of absence reducing respect, increasing threat. The parchment demands reassessment of territorial stewardship along the eastern ridge lines. Language, so polished it hides the blade underneath. Caelan's fingers flex once at his side. Not anger, calculation, but slower than it should be. Elder Marone. Quietly, they're not requesting. They're mapping our reaction. A second document lands beside the first. No sigil. Burned edges. Border Scouts report. Blackridge patrols increasing along Stonehaven's far markers. Not invasion. Not yet. Just pressure applied to see what bends. Whispers tighten around the room. They're waiting for Caelan to respond. They're waiting for him to fail. That correction settles differently. Caelan's gaze drifts to the territory map on the wall, boundary lines drawn in ink that's starting to feel less like authority and more like memory. And then Rowan's name enters the room, like a dropped weapon. Counselor. His distraction has become measurable. Ravenmore Pass incidents have increased since his last absence. Alara stiffens near the back wall. No one acknowledges it, but it changes the air anyway. A messenger enters without announcing himself. He leans toward Maron. The words don't carry, but Maron's expression holds just long enough to become worse than any answer. Then he straightens. Maron. Blackridge has begun speaking to outer clans, not alliances. He pauses. Maron. Alternatives. The word sits in the room. Alternatives. Not negotiation. Preparation. The quiet work of building a future where Stonehaven's current leadership is no longer part of the equation. A Caelan. Barely moving. How far? Messenger. Hesitating, 3 clans have already agreed to hear them. Something fractures in the room. Not loudly. Not visibly. Just in the specific way that trust fractures, quietly, almost politely, and all at once.
Chairs shift.
Bodies reposition. The subtle rearrangement of people around a weakening center. Then, Meron. Quieter now. There's another matter. The room tightens again. Meron. One of our own has been asking questions.
Quietly.
Outside sanction channels.
Caelan, about what?
Meron looks down at the table, like the wood might offer him something. Meron. Rowan's past. Silence detonates. Not outward, inward. Alara takes a step forward before she realizes she's moved. Meron, reluctantly, and whoever is investigating already has names that should not be in their reach. The room doesn't erupt. It doesn't need to, because everyone understands the same thing at the same time. This is no longer just pressure from outside. It's internal, and it's already in motion. Outside in the corridor, footsteps stop. Not arriving, waiting. Meron. Just before silence fully returns, if Rowan is compromised, Stonehaven loses what little balance it still has. Several hands move slowly toward documents on the table. No one gives permission. No one needs to. They're already preparing for a future where Caelan is not enough. The corridor still carries Meron's last words. The stone won't let go of them. Caelan walks out of the council chamber without formally dismissing it. No one stops him. That absence of resistance is its own kind of fracture. Alara follows, half a step behind, silent in a way that used to feel like comfort. The outer gates open. Cold wind cuts in immediately. Wet stone and distant pine. The sky presses low and gray, like an unfinished thought. Rowan is already mounted.
Too still.
That's the first thing wrong. Her posture is perfect, controlled, but not present. The reins sit in her hands, without tension. Her horse shifts beneath her, uneasy, responding to something no one else can see. Stonewatch Pass rises ahead, narrow, jagged, its edges marked with old boundary stones carved in angular script that doesn't belong on any current map. Rowan sees them before they reach the pass. Her entire body changes. It's not dramatic at first. A tightening at the shoulders. A breath that should have continued and doesn't. Then her fingers loosen on the reins, barely but enough. Alara. Uncertain Rowan? Rowan doesn't answer. The wind sharpens as they enter the pass. Sound narrows. The horse's hooves feel somehow quieter, absorbed by stone too old to fully echo back. Then Rowan exhales. Not relief. Recognition. Her gaze locks onto one carved marker on the cliffside. Weathered, half-eaten by time, but enough. The color drains from her face so quickly it looks like the light is being pulled out of her. Caelan, slowing his horse. What is that? Her lips part slightly. Nothing comes out. A long silence follows, not empty, but compressed. Like something is waiting for her to decide which version of herself survives the next few seconds. Her hand moves to her wrist. Small motion. Instinctive. Something beneath her sleeve catches the dim light. An old mark, a thread of metal, and she covers it immediately. Too fast. Too practiced. Caelan sees it. That's the second thing wrong. Rowan, we should turn back. Her voice is steady, built carefully, holding something heavier underneath. Alara, turn back? We're minutes from. Rowan, I said turn back. The authority in it is unfamiliar. Not Stonehaven authority. Something older. Sharper. Not learned, inherited. Caelan dismounts. Cold stone through his boots. He steps closer, looking up at her fully now. The wind pulls at her hair, exposing the tension in her jaw. Caelan. Quieter, Rowan. You recognize this place. A pause. Her eyes find his, and for the first time, the fear there isn't about the present. It's about something much further back. Rowan, I don't. The lie is immediate.
Too clean.
Too fast to be real. Somewhere deeper in the pass, a stone falls, rolls, disappears. The sound feels like punctuation on something unfinished. Caelan doesn't push yet, but something in him shifts, not distrustfully. The beginning of it. A thin line where certainty used to be continuous. Alara is no longer watching Rowan as an ally. She's watching her as an unknown variable. Rowan's horse shifts violently. She tightens the reins too late. Her breathing changes, shorter, controlled, but breaking at the edges. Rowan, I need to leave. Caelan, leave to where? No answer. Her eyes return to the carved stone, and then away, immediately, as if even seeing it too long risks something collapsing inside her. She dismounts in one clean motion, too efficient to be calm. Boots hit the ground, and she's already moving before anyone can properly respond. Alara, Rowan. But Rowan is walking back the way they came. Not running. Not fleeing. Erasing. Caelan stands still, watching her silhouette narrow between the jagged stone walls until the wind takes it entirely. Then he speaks. Quietly. Caelan. That was not recognition. Alara doesn't respond, because she saw it too. Neither of them says what it means yet. Above them, the carved symbols on the pass catch light and hold it. They feel less like markings now, more like memory waiting to be reopened. Where Rowan stood, a faint impression remains in the damp stone, already fading, as if she was never fully there. The past doesn't release them. Even riding back, the air feels altered, like something inside the valley was displaced and hasn't settled. They return to Stonehaven without speaking. Each hoofstep feels like it belongs to a question no one is ready to say aloud. Maron is already in the council chamber, waiting. He doesn't ask where Rowan is. That absence of question is louder than anything he could have said. He places a thin, sealed ledger on the table. Old wax, cracked at the edges, intact enough to suggest it was never meant to be opened again. Maron. This arrived through a monastery courier route that no longer officially exists. Alara. Carefully, Graymere? Something shifts in the room at that name. Not fear, recognition of a place that should have stayed irrelevant. Maron nods once. Caelan reaches for the ledger. His hand hovers above it for a fraction too long. He breaks the seal. The wax crumbles like dry bone. Inside, faded ink, uneven handwriting, margins crowded with corrections that look rushed. Not archival. Survival documentation. A monastery record from Graymere. Caelan reads the first line aloud without meaning to. Caelan. Mass casualty event. Outer Ridge incursion. Unidentified raiders. Page after page describes a night that wasn't supposed to be remembered. Stonewatch proximity. Villages burning beyond jurisdiction lines. A monastery sheltering displaced families until the walls were breached from within. He turns a page. Subject group relocated to inner crypt system during breach. Identity records partially lost. Survivors unverified. His eyes tighten slightly. Maron. Keep reading. The ink grows darker on the next pages. Like the writer stopped caring about neatness and started caring only about getting the truth down before there was no one left to read it. A list. Names of the dead. Names marked unknown recovered. Then a section scratched through violently, but still legible beneath the damage. Protective sacrifice confirmed. Civilians of Graymere sector engaged containment diversion to prevent full ridge collapse and secondary breach into Thornwyck-linked territories. Thornwyck. That word doesn't belong in a monastery record. Caelan looks up once. Maron doesn't explain. The implication forms slowly, unbearably. The sacrifice wasn't random. It was directional, intentional. Someone decided who would be lost so that certain territories, certain names would survive. He turns the last page. Cleaner than the others. Almost ceremonial. Like someone insisted on dignity at the end. A survivor list. One name written in full. The ink slightly smudged at the final line, as if the hand that wrote it paused before finishing. Alara leans in close. Maron closes his eyes briefly. Caelan reads it once. Then again. Rowan Vale. The silence doesn't detonate outward. It collapses inward. Alara's breath catches sharply. Caelan doesn't move.
Not yet.
Because something in him refuses to reconcile that name with the woman who just walked out of Stonewatch Pass like she was escaping a memory that had learned how to find her. Not Rowan of Stonehaven. Not a political attachment. Not a distraction from Blackridge or council fracture. A survivor of Greymere. A child shaped by a massacre that predates every conversation they've ever had with her. The ledger slips slightly in his grip. No one stops it. It lands softly on the table. The sound feels too loud anyway. Outside the window, the wind picks up against the keep walls, pressing through cracks that suddenly feel smaller than what they contain. Caelan, voice lower than before. Why is this resurfacing now? Maron hesitates. That hesitation is the answer before the words come. Maron, because someone else already found it. And they're not asking what happened at Greymere. A pause. Maron, they're asking what Rowan Vale was protecting when she survived. The candlelight flickers once. Alara turns slightly toward Caelan, not for instruction, for signs of fracture. None come. But Caelan looks down at the name again. Rowan Vale. Not a coincidence. Not a fragment. A foundation. And beneath it, something far worse than shock begins to form. The slow realization that his pursuit of her was never neutral. He has been moving through something already burning, without knowing the fire had a name. A distant bell sounds somewhere in Stonehaven Keep. One strike. Unscheduled. Not ceremony. Unrest. Nobody moves. They listen. And in that suspended silence, Caelan understands the cost has already shifted. Not toward the past. Toward what's still coming for her. The ledger stays open on the table. No one closes it. Doing so would feel like denying what has already been written into the foundation of this place. Caelan stands over it, eyes on the name that refuses to soften. Alara's breathing is measured now, like the room has made silence into policy. Maron watches Caelan more than the document, and that's when it arrives. Not suddenly, not cleanly, in pieces that refuse to stay separate. His pursuit of Rowan, his insistence on proximity, his inability to step back even when distance would have been the reasonable choice. It was never only curiosity. It was recognition layered over something older.
Debt.
Not spoken. Formed in the pressure behind his ribs. A debt he didn't consciously choose. A debt the kingdom may have been teaching him to carry without ever naming its origin. His fingers tighten against the table edge. Once. Maron. Quietly say it. Caelan looks up. His expression is controlled, but not stable. Caelan, if what Greymere recorded is true, we didn't just lose people that night. Alara's gaze sharpens. Caelan. Quieter. We gained a survivor we never acknowledged. Silence. Not agreement. Not denial. Something more dangerous than both. Because acknowledgement means responsibility. And responsibility in Stonehaven always becomes political weight eventually. Outside, the bell sounds twice. Closer. The council has begun moving without permission. Marone. Blackridge is accelerating. They're not waiting for our internal clarity anymore. Clarity. The word sounds almost mocking here. Caelan closes the ledger. Not fully. Just enough to cover the name. As if hiding it changes anything. It doesn't. Alara. Controlled, strained. If Rowan is tied to Greymere, then Blackridge isn't just testing Stonehaven.
She stops.
Chooses the next words carefully. Alara, they're testing what she remembers.
A beat.
Caelan feels the shift, subtle, irreversible. Rowan is no longer just an ally or an absence. She's a variable both sides are moving toward. And neither side has asked her permission. Something in him that was already strained tightens further. Not fear. Conflict. Because his need to find her is no longer clean. It's not purely protection. Not purely loyalty. It's obligation that has started to feel like desire, and desire that has started to resemble obligation. He exhales sharply. Caelan, send word to the Eastern patrols. If Rowan is anywhere near Stonewatch Corridor again, he stops. Because the sentence feels wrong before it finishes. Alara, quietly, you were going to say retrieve her. He doesn't answer immediately. That delay is answer enough. Marone, measured, careful. If you frame her as retrieval, you've already decided how the council interprets her. That lands differently. Because interpretation is power in Stonehaven. Caelan looks at the closed ledger. Rowan Vale. Not object. Not asset. Survivor. And yet every structure around him, council, clans, external pressure, is already reshaping her into something usable. A symbol. A liability. A leverage point. And he is standing too close to the center of that transformation. Alara. Stepping back slightly, it's already happening. You can feel it. They're going to use her whether we act or not.
He knows she's right.
That's what makes it worse. Because inaction is also a form of participation. The silence that follows is the heaviest one yet. Not empty, crowded with consequences not yet spoken. Caelan, quieter than before, if I go after her, I'm not sure I'm doing it for the right reason anymore. No one responds immediately, because that's the first honest sentence in the room. And honesty here is destabilizing. Marone, placing both hands on the table's edge, then you need to decide. Before someone decides for you, the bell outside strikes again. 3 times. Urgent now. A draft moves through the chamber, brushes against the open ledger, and one page turns slightly on its own, revealing the edge of an entry underneath, partially hidden, previously unnoticed. Caelan sees only a fragment before Alara steps forward and covers it, but not before he sees the ink. A second name, partially crossed out, associated with Greymere. Not Rowan's. Someone else. Someone who should no longer be in circulation. Alara holds his gaze a fraction too long. And in that moment, the moral fracture stops being theoretical. It's already active. Marone. Very quietly, there's one more thing. Caelan goes still. Marone. The council has received confirmation. A beat. Marone. Rowan Vale has been officially marked in Blackridge correspondence. He hesitates, then finishes it. Marone. Not as survivor. Marone. As asset recovery priority. The room doesn't move. Everything inside it shifts anyway. And for the first time, Caelan understands the kingdom is not asking him to choose between duty and desire. It's asking him to decide what Rowan Vale is allowed to be, before she decides it for herself. The council chamber feels smaller than it did yesterday. Not physically, morally. Like the walls leaned inward overnight, listening more closely to decisions they were never meant to hear. Too many people are here. That's the first pressure Caelan registers before anyone speaks. They're not gathered for discussion anymore. They're gathered for direction. Maron places a single sheet on the table. Fresh Blackridge seal. Sharp edge. No ceremony. Only intent. Maron, they've responded to our hesitation. Alara, hesitation about what? Maron's eyes don't leave Caelan. Maron, about Rowan Vale. The name lands differently now. Not discovery. Not revelation. Pressure. The council reacts, not loudly, but in coordinated shifts. Chairs adjust. Hands fold. The quiet choreography of people preparing outcomes rather than understanding them. The Blackridge message is read aloud. It's not a threat. It's a demand dressed in the language of diplomacy. 3 days. That's all it grants before it escalates. Asset verification protocols along contested corridors. A phrase designed to sound legal while meaning force. Alara, jaw tightening, they're moving faster than expected. Maron, they're not reacting anymore. They're directing. Caelan takes the letter. As he reads, something inside him goes still, not calm. The specific stillness of a person recognizing how little space remains. Blackridge isn't only interested in Rowan. They're interested in what she represents. The Greymere records. The Thornwyck reference. The buried connection no one says out loud. All of it collected. Useful. A council member clears his throat. Elder Varen steps forward. Varen. Carefully. We've assessed possible stabilization paths. If Rowan Vale is returned under controlled terms, Blackridge pressure may be contained without territorial loss. Returned. The word fractures something subtle in the room. Caelan. Slowly. You're suggesting we hand her over. Varen. We're suggesting we preserve Stonehaven. Alara. Immediate. At the cost of a person? Varen. At the cost of many persons if we miscalculate this. And there it is. Not right or wrong.
Scale.
The argument that justifies everything if you let it. Maron places another document down. Older. Greymere adjacent. Intelligence. Partially reconstructed. Names Caelan recognizes immediately. Influential clan mediators. Border arbitrators. Council-link negotiators whose signatures have shaped half of Stonehaven's external treaties. Alara reads faster now. Alara. These people, they were present near Greymere during the containment breach. Maron. Nodding once, and Rowan survived. The implication sits in the air, unspoken, and far worse for being unspoken. If Rowan speaks about what she witnessed, if she remembers correctly, entire alliances fracture. Not hypothetically. Structurally. Caelan exhales once through his nose. The realization doesn't arrive like shock. It arrives like accumulation. Every direction forward has consequence attached. Protect Rowan. Destabilize the kingdom. Return Rowan. Erase what she survived. Do nothing. Allow Blackridge to take her anyway. Alara. Stepping closer, voice lower. We can't treat her as a variable anymore. Maron. That's exactly what they're doing. A silence follows. Long, heavy. Because it's no longer about interpretation. It's about inevitability. Counselor. Urgently, Blackridge envoys are already moving. They'll reach Stonewatch corridor within the countdown window. Caelan looks up. Stonewatch. The place Rowan fled from. Or into. He can't tell anymore. Alara, you're thinking of going after her again. Not a question. He doesn't deny it. That silence is answer enough. Maron, dropping his voice, if you go, you're not just choosing her safety. You're choosing what she becomes in the eyes of every clan watching. Visibility is currency now, and Rowan is already overexposed. Caelan steps away from the table without quite deciding to. Caelan, if she's truly tied to Greymere, then Blackridge isn't chasing her for information.
He stops.
Alara, finishing it, they're chasing what she represents. He nods, because that's the part no one wants to say directly. Rowan isn't just a survivor. She's a trigger point, a living fracture between truth and political stability. And now the kingdom is choosing which version of reality it can afford. Alara, whatever you decide, it won't stay contained.
He knows that.
That's what makes it unbearable. Maron, 3 days. After that, Blackridge stops asking. He pauses. Maron, they act. Outside, distant movement echoes through the corridors. Messengers. Preparations. The sound of a system tightening around something about to give way. Caelan feels it now, not as theory, as geometry closing in. No configuration left where everyone survives unchanged. Not Rowan, not Stonehaven, not him. He turns back to the table. The ledger isn't there anymore. Its absence feels heavier than its presence ever did. Alara, quietly, what are you going to do? He doesn't answer immediately, because the answer isn't about strategy anymore. It's about loss. And every possible path begins with something being broken. The bell rings once. 3 days remain. And for the first time, Caelan understands it clearly. There is no version of this future where Rowan Vale remains only what she is now, or where the kingdom survives without becoming something unrecognizable. He steps toward the door. The council doesn't stop him, because they already know. The decision has moved beyond permission. It has entered inevitability. Elder Glen breathes like something alive. Cold air spills from its mouth in uneven pulses, wet mineral, old iron, like the stone has been holding secrets too long and is struggling not to release them all at once. Caelan enters first, boots scraping limestone. Echo swallowed too quickly. Space too deep for comfort. Rowan is already inside. Not waiting. Not hiding. Standing. At the center of a fractured chamber where veins of pale crystal split the rock like exposed memory. The silence between them is immediate and absolute. Not peace. Pressure. Rowan doesn't look at him at first. Her gaze stays on the wall where ancient markings twist through mineral veins, symbols older than Stonehaven's maps. Her fingers hover near one of them, never touching. Rowan, stop following me. Her voice isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It cuts cleanly through the cavern anyway. Caelan stops a few steps away. Not because she said so. Because moving closer feels like crossing a line that already exists without anyone drawing it. Caelan, we're not here to take you. Rowan, a faint, humorless exhale. That's never what it starts as. Alara shifts slightly behind him. Rowan turns fully. And the moment she does, something in the cavern feels recalibrated. Not softer. More dangerous. Rowan, you think obligation makes you different? He doesn't answer fast enough. She steps forward 1 pace. The crystal veins in the wall catch the torchlight, flicker, as if reacting to her proximity. Rowan, I have lived inside obligation. I have survived people who called it duty, sacrifice, necessity. Her gaze sharpens. Rowan, I won't survive it again in a different shape. Silence. Judgmental. Caelan feels it then, the fracture inside his own intention. Every reason he's carried into this cavern begins to separate under that gaze. Protection.
Guilt. Debt.
Something else he hasn't named. She's reading what he hasn't spoken. Rowan, you came because you think you owe me something. He doesn't deny it fast enough. That is the answer. Rowan turns slightly away. Anger controlled, but present underneath the restraint. Rowan, I don't want repayment. I don't want rescue. I don't want to be the thing your kingdom uses to justify itself. Her hand touches the stone wall. The cavern reacts. A faint tremor moves through the chamber, not collapse, not danger, but recognition. Dust drifts from the ceiling in slow, unhurried streams. Alara, stepping forward, Rowan, without looking back, don't. Not hostile, final. Caelan watches her hand on the wall. The way her breathing shifts, as if the stone is answering her in a language no one else can hear. And he realizes it. Rowan isn't only connected to Greymere. She's connected to something far deeper than any record admitted. Not ownership, not leverage, origin. That changes everything. A long silence stretches. This time, he doesn't rush to fill it. Caelan, finally, you're right. Rowan looks back sharply, not expecting agreement. Caelan, if I act from obligation, I'm just repeating what everyone else has already done to you. Even the distant drip of water seems to slow. Rowan doesn't respond immediately. Her expression tightens, not softened, not comforted. Evaluating. Caelan takes one step closer, then deliberately stops. Caelan, but if I act because I choose to, then it's no longer something taken from you. It's something I stand behind. A long pause. Alara doesn't move, doesn't speak, as if any sound might collapse what's forming in the space between them. Rowan, lower. And what exactly are you choosing? Caelan exhales.
Slow. Certain.
Caelan, I'm going to the choosing ceremony. The air shifts instantly. Even Alara stiffens. Rowan, that's a political stage. Caelan, yes. And I'm going to use it as one. The words land heavy. Not declaration.
Commitment.
Rowan, and what do you think that changes? Caelan, it makes this visible. Not hidden. Not negotiated in silence. Not decided by counsel speaking in my place. A pause. Caelan, I choose it in the open. Something crosses Rowan's expression. Not approval, not agreement. Recognition. Followed immediately by something colder. Fear of consequence. Not intention. Rowan, quietly, you don't understand what that ceremony does. He doesn't ask her to explain, because part of him already suspects, and part of her past is still sealed in ways Greymere never finished writing. Rowan steps back. A single step. Distance returning like instinct. Rowan, if you do this, you won't just be making a choice about me. Silence drops. Heavy. Intentional. Rowan, you'll be exposing everyone who benefits from keeping me buried. The cavern feels smaller now. Caelan understands. The choosing ceremony isn't symbolic. It's a disclosure point. A structured moment where alliances are formalized, names are legitimized, and hidden histories are forced into public alignment. And Rowan is at the center of something multiple clans would rather erase than face. He looks at her. Really looks. Not as obligation. Not as debt. But as someone standing at the edge of becoming a public fracture in a very old, very deliberate lie. Caelan, Then they'll have to face what they buried. Rowan's expression tightens. Not approval, not trust. Something more fragile than both.
Concern.
Rowan, you don't realize what you're risking. Caelan, quietly I do. But he doesn't say everything he understands yet. Because the truth is heavier than strategy now. It's consequence. Rowan, barely above a whisper, some truths are meant to stay buried. The silence that follows doesn't resolve. It stretches, holds, and doesn't let go. Caelan stands inside it. And for the first time, he doesn't move to close the distance. Because he's already made the choice that will define the next 3 days. Even if no one outside this cavern has seen it yet. And somewhere beyond Elderglen, the world continues preparing for a ceremony that will no longer be symbolic. It will be irreversible. The stone corridors of Stonehaven Keep are already full before the great hall doors open. Not waiting, expecting. The choosing ceremony doesn't begin with announcement. It begins with pressure. Bodies gathering, breath held, political calculation running quietly behind every still face. Caelan walks through the inner passage without escort. That alone shifts the mood. Nobles in the upper galleries straighten almost imperceptibly. Clan envoys stop mid-whisper. Even servants slow their movement, as if speed might be misread as allegiance. Alara follows at a controlled distance. Maron is somewhere above, present in structure, not sight. The hall doors open. Warm air spills out. Incense, polished wood, ceremonial oil masking the smell of steel underneath. Inside, concentric tiers. Noble houses elevated. Clan leaders closer to center. Council observers at the highest arc. And in the exact center, an empty circle, waiting. Caelan steps into it. His boots echo longer than they should. A small deviation. Noted. The herald begins. Alliance. Continuity. Stability. The words drift through the chamber like ritual smoke. The language of ceremony, designed to feel inevitable. But the room is waiting for the match selection. The strategic alignment. The expected political binding that will resolve Blackridge pressure, council fracture, external clan unrest. That expectation is a living thing. Heavy. Confident.
Wrong.
Caelan looks up slowly. He sees clearly now. House Farron. Clan Elder Mark. 2 Blackridge-aligned delegates in the eastern tier despite formal restriction. Their presence alone is a warning wearing the mask of etiquette. Alara's gaze sharpens from the side. She sees it too. The ceremony proceeds. Names presented. Candidates introduced, each a carefully curated solution to instability. Each name landing like an assumption. Each assumption adding weight. Caelan doesn't move. Then the final candidate is
announced.
A pause follows. The room leans in, expects acknowledgement, approval, closure. Caelan inhales.
Slow.
Controlled. He steps forward into the center circle. Silence drops immediately. Not requested. Not ceremonial. Imposed. He looks at the gathered houses. Not as supplicant. Not as participant. As rupture point. The herald begins to speak again. Caelan lifts one hand slightly. The voice stops. The room obeys. And the first fracture appears in the architecture of expectation. Caelan, I reject every proposed alignment. The words don't echo. They detonate. A ripple moves through the chamber, chairs shifting, breath catching, political calculation recalibrating in real time. Caelan, this ceremony will not be used to stabilize Stonehaven through arrangement. A pause. His gaze moves across the hall. Caelan, not through obligation, not through convenience, not through concealment. Nobles begin speaking over each other, overlapping objections, rising into pressure. He doesn't stop. He steps forward, one more pace into the center. Caelan, I will not bind Stonehaven to prevent instability created by fear of truth.
Truth.
Too dangerous in ceremonial space. Too imprecise to control. Council delegate. Rising sharply, you are destabilizing. Caelan turns his gaze toward them. The delegate stops mid-sentence. Not intimidation. Recognition of consequence. Caelan, quiet. Finalizing. I will decide my path outside the structure. Silence. Not absence. Collapse of expectation. The political framework of the room begins to shift without permission. Alliances recalculating. Whispered reassessments spreading like something catching. Because if Caelan refuses all alignments, then the ceremony loses its function, and everything it was built to contain begins to leak. Alara steps half a pace forward, uncertain now not of him, but of what he has just triggered. The upper galleries freeze, watching, waiting for the second declaration, because there's always one. Caelan lowers his hand. His voice drops slightly, not softer, heavier. Caelan, I will announce my course at the final choosing window. A pause. Caelan, not here. The words hang. Unresolved. Uncontained. The herald looks instinctively toward the council tier. No instruction comes. Because instruction no longer exists for this moment. Only reaction. And reaction has already begun. A sealed document is opened prematurely somewhere in the chamber. Parchment scrapes stone. A messenger steps backward, too quickly. Outside, distant bells begin to ring. Not ceremonial. Alert. 3 days have narrowed into something sharper. Hours feel possible now. Caelan turns slightly. Not toward the council. Not toward the nobles. Toward the exit. And as he does, he understands something fully for the first time. He has just removed every safe outcome from the room. Not replaced them. Removed them. Behind him, voices fragment. Unstable. No longer unified by expectation. And somewhere beyond Stonehaven's walls, Blackridge envoys are no longer waiting for alignment. They are preparing for rupture. Caelan steps out of the center circle. The ceremony does not resume. It cannot, because nothing in it is valid anymore. The doors of Stonehaven stay open longer than they should. No one closes them, as if the room isn't sure whether what just happened is finished or still unfolding. Voices overlap behind him. Names, objections, recalculations, but they don't reach him fully anymore. They stay behind the stone threshold like water that has decided not to cross. Caelan stands just outside. Still. Not forward. Not back. The air outside is colder than it was before the ceremony. Or maybe it only feels that way now that everything inside has changed shape. He exhales once. Not relief. Clarity that has cost too much to feel clean. He turns, not toward the hall, toward the open stone courtyard where wind moves without asking permission. Rowan is there. Not waiting as before. Not fleeing. Just standing at the edge of distance, as if she has learned that proximity is its own form of risk. Her eyes find his. No expectation. No permission. Only awareness. Caelan steps forward once, then stops. The silence between them isn't empty anymore. It's full of everything that was almost done to her in his name, and everything he almost justified in return. Caelan. Quietly, Rowan Vale. The name lands differently now. Not record, not leverage, not fracture. Presence. A long pause. She doesn't move, doesn't soften, but she listens. Caelan, I'm not choosing you because I owe you anything.
A breath.
Caelan, I'm choosing you because you are not something to be owed. The wind moves between them.
Cold.
Simple. Uninvolved. Rowan's expression tightens, not rejection. Resistance to being defined again. Caelan lowers his gaze for a moment, then meets hers. Caelan, and if you refuse, you're free to walk away. Silence. It holds longer than anything before it. Not tension now. Decision without pressure. Rowan looks at him for a long moment, reading what's underneath the words. Debt isn't there. Possession isn't there. Something else is.
Choice.
Not taken. Offered. Her breath shifts.
Small.
Human. She doesn't answer immediately. That delay is the first honest space between them. Behind them, inside Stonehaven Keep, distant voices rise again. Political systems trying to reassemble after fracture. Blackridge pressure waits outside the walls. Unmoved. But none of it enters this moment. Rowan. Finally, then you don't get to decide what I become. Caelan. Quietly, I won't. A pause. Something fragile, not resolved, but no longer forced. Rowan turns slightly toward the open courtyard. Not leaving yet. Not fully staying. Just existing without containment. And for the first time, Caelan doesn't follow. The wind moves through Stonehaven's archways. The echo of the ceremony tries to correct itself inside. It cannot return to what it was, because nothing here fits its original shape anymore. Caelan remains where he is, not as a ruler, not as a claimant,
Just someone who has stopped reaching.
The stone holds the silence. And in that silence, Rowan doesn't disappear. She simply remains. Unowned. Unforced. Still becoming. Above Stonehaven, the sky darkens. Far beyond the ridge lines of Stonewatch Pass, unseen movements gather around truths that were never meant to surface this soon. And somewhere in the deep quiet of it all, the carved symbols on the pass walls hold their light just a little longer than they should, as if they too are waiting to see what she decides. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, there's more waiting for you. Tap the thumbnail on your screen to continue the journey. And if you felt something while watching, don't just scroll away. Drop a like, leave a comment, and let your voice be part of the Alpha King Dynasty. Your support keeps the story alive.